Pacific Press, Getty Images. The Medicare for All train is picking up steam. 15 Senate Democrats are co-sponsoring Bernie Sanders' single-payer health care bill. Several of them look like presidential contenders. Now more than ever, universal single-payer health care is being treated as a viable policy idea in the United States, in part because it is an increasingly politically popular one. But the American public is notoriously fickle when it comes to health care. Just look at how the Affordable Care Act's approval lagged, right up until Republicans tried to repeal it. So does the public really want single-payer health care? I think the honest answer is they don't really know where they stand, Celinda Lake, a top progressive pollster, told me this week. There's a lot of play in the polling, because a lot of people are still not really clear on what we're talking about. That was the general consensus of the polling experts I talked to who have studied single-payer polling. Americans like the idea of universal coverage. They are ever more comfortable with a robust government role. But they haven't had a specific plan to digest and respond to the trade-offs that come with any health care plan: the transition from work-based coverage to government insurance, increased taxes to pay for increased government spending, and the potent attacks that will be deployed by opponents. The government will take over your health care, have been shown to drag down support for a national health care plan. Lots of the country may be very ready for single payer as an idea, as a slogan. They may embrace the goals that go with it: universal coverage, health care as a right. Drew Altman, president and CEO of the Kaiser Family Foundation, one of the premier polling outfits for health care issues, told me. That doesn't tell us much at all about where the country will be if you get to a debate about real legislation, he continued, with real details, with real winners and losers. The public supports an active government role in healthcare. First things first, Americans have long been comfortable with the idea of the government guaranteeing health insurance for every American. The idea ducked underwater when opposition to Obamacare was at its fiercest a few years ago, but it has been the majority position for most of the past 2 decades. On top of that, support for a national health insurance plan provided by the government has been on a steady if slow trend upward since the 1990s. This chart from the Kaiser Family Foundation summarizes the movement. It's somewhat resurgent, Altman said. It's popular among Democrats, and it's become more popular among independents. Indeed, independents show the greatest movement. 10 years ago 62% of Democrats supported single-payer, and today 64% of them say they do. Republicans haven't really budged either, 24% to 28%. But among independents, support for single-payer healthcare has surged from 42% in 2008 and 2009 to 55% today. The inevitable trade-offs shave off support for single-payer. It is nearly universally acknowledged that Americans might not love their current health insurance, but they are uneasy about any major disruption to the system. After all, 90% of Americans do have some kind of health coverage right now. That was more or less the thesis of Pollstar's Remedy and Reaction, which tracks the rise and fall of various healthcare reform plans at the federal level over the past century. Single-payer health care, more than any plan that so far preceded it, would significantly disrupt the existing system, and whatever Americans' complaints about their health care, that will be a real challenge for the concept. Among the most compelling arguments against single-payer health care is that it would require increased taxes to pay for it. It's worth noting that Sanders's plan is foregoing, for the time being, a detailed plan to pay for it. Combine increased taxes with the major disruption single-payer promises for people who have insurance already, and the political challenges become evident. Many people in the protected public, those with good employer benefits, veterans, seniors on Medicare, will see the new taxes required for single-payer as an extra burden that doesn't benefit them. Starr, a Princeton University professor, told me. The counter-argument used by single-payer supporters is that any increased taxes will be offset by the elimination of health insurance premiums paid by workers and their employers and, in the case of the Sanders Medicare for All plan, almost no more out-of-pocket costs. Still, Starr is skeptical. Yes, advocates can argue to the employed that single-payer will substitute for current insurance premiums, he said. But those with good employer insurance would have to be confident that their employers will use all the savings from insurance to raise wages, and I'm doubtful most people